2017 has finally come to an end, which means that I get the privilege to make my first top 15 films of the year. I never thought 2017 would come to an end. It's been fucking rough. Alright, so before I actually get into my top 15 list, I am very aware, highly aware, that there are many extraordinary films that came out this year that I just didn't have the time or money to get to, such as Three Billboards Out of Ebbing, Missouri. I heard that was a great film. I, Tonya, starring Margot Robbie. I heard that was also a very good film. Wonder was a great film. I didn't even get to see Thor Ragnarok, so I essentially just didn't have the time or money to get to these films. That's just a sad reality of my life, but let's just move on to my honorable mentions. I got a little list right here on my phone. Let's give me a second, let me pull it up. Okay, here we go. So these were films that I thought were fantastic films, but I just couldn't put these films above all the other films that I have in my top 15 list. So, let's see. First honorable mention, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I know I might get crucified by some people out there, but I just personally couldn't. There was a lot of great films this year that I couldn't put Star Wars above them, so that's just that. Let's see what else we got here. We got Brigsby Bear. Brigsby Bear was one of those gems of a film that I just thought was great, and nobody really cared about it. Still to this day, no one really even gives a shit about it. No one talks about it. But it's really a great film about filmmaking in general, and it's really good. But again, I just couldn't put it on there. Annabelle Creation, great horror film, a very surprisingly good horror film, but just couldn't put it in there. Dunkirk, that one really hurt me because I thought that was an aesthetic masterpiece. There's just no denying it. Dunkirk was aesthetically flawless. It just didn't have that emotional grip that I needed, so I just really couldn't fit it in there in my top 15. But let's see what else I got here. The Little Hours was a great little indie comedy that I almost was able to squeeze in here, but I just couldn't. Let's see what else we got. Split was also a very good movie with an excellent performance from James McAvoy. Again, just couldn't put it up there. M. Night Shyamalan is kind of back, but not all the way back. He's got some writing issues that he needs to clear up, but other than that, he's doing all right. I believe that's it. No more honorable mentions. That's it. So let's actually move on to my top 15 films of the year, starting with. At number 15, we have Logan. The number 15 spot was a battle between Star Wars and Logan. And I had to kind of just decide which movie did I have more of an emotional impact and more of an overall memorable film going experience. And I just kind of had to put Logan in front of Star Wars within that standard, because Logan was just one of those action blockbuster movies that X-Men came out with that it's just one that every X-Men fan has just been dying to see. It was R-rated, no holds barred, all the violence in it did not hold back, all the cussing did not hold back. It was an X-Men film that just did not hold back at all, and that's something that, just both Hollywood blockbuster film lovers just kind of want, and also just fans of the X-Men franchises wanted. And it was just a very well done movie overall. And, it was a great send-off to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and the third act of the movie, the final part of the movie kind of had me choked up and slightly in tears. I wasn't bawling my eyes out, but it definitely choked me up, because it's that this is the last time you're going to see Hugh Jackman play a main role as Wolverine, supposedly. Hopefully one day we'll see it again, but as far as I'm concerned, this was the last movie where he was going to have a main role, and it was great. It was everything I wanted it to be. At number 14, we have Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. This was a really interesting movie experience, and it's definitely Toro. This is definitely his film. You can tell everything from the production design, the kind of dark comedy that's used, a lot of the way that the violence is portrayed in this movie. That it's his film. And, it's a very touching movie. It's one of those movies that you kind of leave out of feeling all gushy. And it was great. Number 13, we have It Comes at Night. So this movie was really interesting experience for me because I went to an art theater to see this, and the audience there was very respectful. They were very quiet. It's one of the very few times where I actually got to see a horror movie where the entire audience shut the hell up. That was really nice. And I remember there were so many mixed reactions, even at the art theater after leaving it. Some people really did not like this movie. Some people loved this movie. Some people were kind of in between. But I really liked this movie. I thought it did a great job at exploring the human condition and what happens to humans when they put themselves in the state of nature. Or not put themselves, but when the state of nature comes to them. It's kind of interesting to see how things play out and how morals play out, and to see what kind of morals they put higher than others. And it was a very, very well executed movie in terms of trying to convey human behavior when something like this happens. And it was wonderful. It was also a very ambiguous film, which is something that, again, was probably what sparked a lot of the mixed reactions, that people didn't know exactly, a few things that were in the film, or what they say the main thing. What was it? Oh, I don't know what it was, therefore I hate this movie. But, I thought it was great. The entire ambiguity angle, I saw no problem with it. I actually liked it. So, yeah, there it is. That's why it's number 13. So at number 12, we have Good Time. Good Time was, again, just like a gem of a movie that essentially just came out of nowhere. I saw no marketing for it. I didn't even hear about it when I went to go see it. The only reason why I saw this movie is just because I was bored and I was looking on IMDb just to see what movies are coming out. And I see Good Time. I'm like, oh, this is an A24 movie starring Robert Pattinson. Interesting. I look up my local theater, my local AMC theater. They're playing it. So I literally just raw dogged the film. Like, I didn't even know anything about the plot or the director or anything. All I knew is that it was A24 and Robert Pattinson was in it, and I was going to go see it. And boy, did I have a great time with Good Time. That movie blew my expectations away, because there really were no expectations essentially, but I had the expectation of A24. So I guess that alone, you can tell that this is an A24 film, definitely, when you start it. It's definitely got its own stylistic, independent vibe to it, where that there is an actual artist behind the filmmaking of this. And it was great. Robert Pattinson gives, honestly, the best performance that I've ever seen in his entire career. And this movie in general is just, it's a phenomenal experience. And it's a great movie that both casuals and film lovers can probably meet in the middle and enjoy. I think film lovers probably get more out of this, but I can definitely find a casual moviegoer watching this movie and not being really let down by it. At number 11, we have A Cure for Wellness. Boy, do I think this movie is incredibly underrated. I was really hyped to see this movie because the trailer was really interesting, because it really showed the aesthetics of this movie. This movie is an aesthetic masterpiece. The cinematography is one of the most notable things about the movie. I mean, the cinematography in this movie is absolutely immaculate. I mean, it's certainly, honestly, out of this entire year, it has to be my number 1 or number 2 film in terms of cinematography. The cinematography was absolutely outstanding. And that's just one aspect of the aesthetics that were great. I mean, the sound design was great. The production design was great. The props were great. Acting for the most part was very well done and well executed. The story was pretty good too. I found myself in a sense of wonder throughout this movie. I didn't feel like at any point in this movie did I really crack the case. I felt like I was constantly in a state of confusion. And that's one thing that I like out of a mystery. Sure, you could probably predict certain things that happen, but they weren't like the big reveal of the film. There weren't certain, the film knew that it wasn't trying to be mysterious about the things that would come to light. But when it came to the big aspects of the film, I found myself in a constant state of wonder. And this movie is highly underrated. I think it's definitely one of the most creative things that Hollywood has put out lately, but nobody cared about it. And this is really good. And I if you haven't even heard of this or seen it, I would highly recommend that you go out and see it. At number 10, we have Baby Driver. This movie I obviously knew was probably going to be fantastic, going into it, because I followed Edgar Wright's stuff for a very long time. Shaun of the Dead was one of those first movies that really got me into filmmaking. And, in every film that came after Shaun of the Dead of his was outstanding. The whole Cornetto trilogy, definitely one of the greatest trilogies I've ever seen. You got Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End. Those 3 movies you could pop in at any point of time of the year, any time of day, and you will definitely enjoy it. And it's just so fitting for no matter what time. And these are just brilliantly made movies. And Baby Driver was just, it follows exactly what you would expect from Edgar Wright's style. The music is incorporated in this film in such a uniquely creative way. And it definitely packs a punch to the film, and it gives it a lot of substance, and it gives it a style. And overall, the acting is great. The action sequences are fantastic. And it was filmed in Atlanta, and it's very open about where it is. And I thought that's really cool because I'm from Atlanta. So it's really cool to see like all the different streets that the car chases were taking place on, and to see them reference certain street names. So that was really interesting. I really like this movie for sure. At number 9, we have Okhta. This is another one of those films that I felt is very underlooked and a little underrated. Critics obviously love it, but I say underlooked in the sense that this is a film that really doesn't get talked about at all. And I thought it was a very extravagant and original piece of filmmaking. Sure, it has this kind of somewhat like preachy message about veganism and climate change and stuff like that, but it wasn't preachy to the point where I felt like I was taken out of the movie or I felt like it was lazy. Like this film definitely there's so much effort put into this film. You can tell by all the little details as you're watching the film. And this is just a ride of a movie. It's definitely an emotional ride. If you have empathy for animals or really anything, this movie will get you. It will tug at your heartstrings. And it has a very, again, it has this message about veganism and stuff like that. But again, it doesn't come overly preachy. And you actually relate to the message by the end of the film because, again, it wasn't so preachy. You feel what they're saying. They do it in a very grounded way to where you can understand what they're saying without condemning you as a person. And I just thought they handled the message in this movie very well. And the entire, this film in general is a very original movie. And you're not going to see much movies like this. And I highly recommend it for those who've never heard of it. So that's why it's at number 9. At number 8, we have Lady Bird. Now, I know this movie might be higher up on most people's lists, but remember, we're all different, okay? We all have our own lists. There's some movies that, just kind of stuck with you more, you appreciate more than other movies. But I really like Lady Bird. That film was fantastic. I had a great experience watching this film. One thing I just really, really appreciate about this movie is that it just feels incredibly real and natural. There's nothing in this film that feels like constructed or like it's like constructed from some sort of outside source. Like this film from beginning to end feels like you're just peeking in on somebody's life, and that's quite a task to accomplish. It's not easy to create a film that doesn't feel like a film. And it was really great. The acting across the board was great. Saoirse Ronan again was phenomenal in this film, and I'm pretty sure she will be receiving an Oscar nomination. Not sure if she'll win, but she's definitely gonna be part of the buzz when you hear about who's gonna win Best Lead Actress. She was great. This overall film has it has certain messages and themes that it wants to convey, and it does so in again a very non-preachy way. In a way that, you as the audience member kind of have to extrapolate what you think that scene meant. And overall, it's just a very heartfelt and heart-wrenching movie at the same time. And it was, I definitely see why a whole bunch of people like it because it's a great film. At number 7, we have War for the Planet of the Apes. Boy, did I love the hell out of this movie. This is one of my favorite blockbusters of all time. Not my favorite, but definitely one of my favorites because this movie proved that you can have a movie that's filled with CGI apes and you can actually create so much character substance, so much overall substance just within its story and its theme. There's just so much style, so much meaning in this movie, so much well-executed action as well. That it's just it definitely made for one of the better blockbuster experiences that I have in this that I've had in the theater. And the effects in this movie are astonishing. This film might get the best, might win the Oscar for best special effects because it was just, there's no denying that, throughout this movie you're just kind of just like in awe that you're even like watching something of this caliber where the CGI is just done so delicately. Where you just can't believe it. You can't believe how real it looks. And on top of the amazing CGI, I said, the story is great, the characters were great. Most of them are fleshed out to the point where you care about each event that happens to each character. Even the villain of the movie, Woody Harrelson, they kind of gave him they gave him substance and depth to the point where you understood where he was coming from, even though he is still a psychotic maniac and you don't really want to sympathize with him. You kind of can piece together why he's acting the way that he's acting. And that's something that's really tough to come by when it comes to blockbuster films. You know, it's really easy just to create a cookie cutter villain, say that's it, and then have the good guy that's the obvious good guy. But this film made it to where, like, no, you can actually somewhat see what Woody Harrelson's going through. And that was kind of interesting. So yeah, it's a great film, great blockbuster. Definitely my favorite out of the three Planet of the Apes movie. Dawn comes close, but War for the Planet of the Apes, I think, is just overall a better made film.
Not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Number 6, The Disaster Artist. Oh man, James Franco, that dude is just a joy in every aspect of anything. Like, I like that dude. Just, I know I don't know him as a person, but from what I've seen, that dude is just a really chill and awesome person. And he's talented. I mean, yeah, he's directed a few movies that weren't the best, but James Franco is just one talented guy, in my opinion. He's a pretty damn good actor. He did great in this movie, playing Tommy Wiseau, the most consistently inconsistent character you could ever think of is what he had to play. And that is not an easy task. And just overall, the film teaches you a lot about, you know, the pursuit of filmmaking and the pursuit of your dreams. Even if you're not necessarily the most talented person, you know, it shows you that, you know, you could still make something that people can enjoy and like. And this movie is, you know, it's definitely weird because this movie could have definitely went to the route and saying, don't follow your dreams. You know, if you don't got the talent to do it, you know, you shouldn't probably do it because you're just going to embarrass yourself and people are just going to make fun of you. But instead, this movie kind of flips that. And it says, like, no, even though something might be embarrassing, you know, other people get joy out of it, and that's worth something. It's the fact that people can watch something, laugh, and have a good time. That's something to be proud about, and not everybody can say that they made something like that. But overall, this is a great, great movie. It's funny, and it's dramatic, and it has an overall very touching theme to me about filmmaking, and that's why it lands at number 6 on my list. Number 5, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Oh man, where do I even start with this film? I have such a connection with this film now. I mean, before I already did, just walking out of the theater, I was just, again, to use the word in awe, I was in awe at kind of what I saw. And I was just so mesmerized by the experience that I got from watching this film. It's such a disturbingly stylistic piece of filmmaking that it's hard to match with any other filmmakers. The only filmmaker that I can really compare this to is maybe Stanley Kubrick. I definitely had a kind of a Kubrick vibe. I felt like I was watching The Shining when I was watching this movie. It has the same kind of, not the same style, but very similar in terms of score and the way that the camera moves out throughout the entire film. But this movie was fantastic. It's such a great artistic piece of filmmaking, and when it comes to the horror genre, this is definitely a horror. It's not like your conventional horror, obviously, but for me, it was a great psychological horror, and this definitely gave me one of my most memorable film experiences of the year. And ever since I made my film analysis for this video, you know, that film analysis has really helped this channel out a lot, and a lot of people really liked that video, and they really loved going on the comments and discussing all kinds of different things about the film. And, you know, I couldn't really ask for more. You know, this film gave me everything that I kind of wanted to do with the channel in terms of disgusting. The movie is kind of disgusting at parts, but in terms of discussing, you know, film art with people who just have a really huge appreciation for art. And, you know, this film gave me a really decent medium for that, and I can't thank it enough for that. And yeah, that's why it's number 5 on my list. Number 4, we have Mother. Now, Darren Aronofsky's Mother is one of those films that I actually left the theater kind of sweating. My palms were a little sweaty, my back was a little sweaty, and there were other parts of my body that were sweaty, but I won't go into detail. But this movie was super intense, and it's so Aronofsky. Like, I've seen pretty much every film. I've seen pretty much every Darren Aronofsky film. Damn, that's kind of a tongue twister. Before this movie, and They're all great. I love all of his films. Requiem for a Dream is a fantastic film. Black Swan is kind of a masterpiece in my opinion. Even his film Noah, like even the film that I thought I wouldn't like, of course, if it's in Darren Aronofsky's hands, it'll definitely be a great film because that movie really surprised me. But Mother was phenomenal. Mother was absolutely thrilling, and it's funny because it's a very slow-paced movie, but once something starts happening, it's like a snowball effect. Like, it just won't stop. The thrills won't stop for a very long time, and it just keeps you in this very constant state of like panic, and to where your anxiety just kind of shoots up the roof. And that's not really good for me, but the film definitely did its job in trying to make you feel super tense and super anxious. And on top of that, it's a very artistically well-rounded film. It's got so much packed in it, so much different themes, so many different kinds of symbols that you could extrapolate from it. Great acting performances. The aesthetics are literally perfect. The aesthetics are perfect. They're flawless in this movie. And I really hope to see Jennifer Lawrence get a Best Actress nomination. I honestly think at this point, she maybe should win. Mother, great film, astonishing film. I loved it. Disturbing, yes, but damn, this is one extravagant piece of filmmaking, and I love every second of it. At number 3, we have Blade Runner 2049. I never thought in 1 year that I would get 2 of the best blockbusters that I've ever seen in my entire life. War for the Planet of the Apes, I already talked about that, and Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner 2049 is what I wish every blockbuster would try to be. I mean, it's aesthetically beautiful. Every single frame of this film was delicately thought out about, and that is something that I highly appreciate. Every single moment in this film, was probably thought about for a very long time and discussed with other people for a very, very long time. This film has so much effort put into it. There's so much effort put into its style, its characters, its theme. Everything about this film screams that there is people behind it that really, really give a shit about filmmaking. And I just really wish that blockbusters would strive to be something similar to Blade Runner 2049. It's not everybody's cup of tea, sure. It didn't do very well in the box office. It did all right, but it could have done a whole lot better. It's just, this film isn't paced the same way as your average blockbuster. It's not told in the same way of your average blockbuster. And the characters in it are not nearly as obviously attachable in other blockbusters. And this movie just did everything right for me. This movie did everything that I don't like about blockbusters. This film threw that shit in the trash, and it did what I wish that they would do. And I can't praise this film enough. Denis Villeneuve, again, this guy hasn't let me down. This dude just makes phenomenal films, from Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival. I mean, this guy is honestly an underrated film director, and I really hope that more and more people start knowing his name, because this dude is one talented, phenomenal film director, and he has given me so many films that I have truly come to enjoy. And Blade Runner 2049 is, again, just adds to one of those films, and it's definitely the best blockbuster that I've seen in my entire life. So at number 2, we have The Florida Project. Oh man, this movie, I don't even know. This is one of those movies where you walk out of it, you feel like you change slightly. You don't change completely as a person, but you just feel after you walk out of this that you just learned something that a lot of people don't have the privilege to learn. But this film was just phenomenal. I mean, I know I've used that word a lot to describe a lot of different films, but at every sense of the word phenomenal, this movie was phenomenal. The acting performances, especially from this little girl named Brooklyn Prince, she just stole the show, basically. I mean, you have great actors in this movie too. You had Willem Dafoe, who did a great job, and you also have this new actress I never heard of. I can't think of her name on the top of my head, but she plays the mother of the child. But this little girl was just a joy to watch every second she was on screen. There was not a single dull moment when this child's face is on the camera. And, again, this is a very This is a very touching movie, but it's also, again, it's very heart-wrenching and heartbreaking too, especially when it gets to the end of the film. It gets a little extremely heartbreaking, to the point where you're just trying your best to not bawl out in the theater so everybody's laughing at you, but this movie really, really gets to you. At least it really got me. And everything about this film was executed just to the T when it comes to childhood innocence, childhood maturity, what life is actually like on the fringes. This movie is placed in Orlando, Florida, but it's placed like on the fringes of these nice parks like Disney World. A lot of these big, rich, wealthy parks, a lot of the times you'll notice that on the outside of them, it's really impoverished and it's very, very rough. And this film kind of explores that, and it kind of shows you what life is like for children who are living on the fringes where their parents don't even watch them. They're just out running, out and about where anybody can just easily pick them up or whatever. And it just shows you that, sometimes the people that aren't your family are kind of the best people, but it could also be vice versa. This film also shows you that complete strangers can also screw you over too. And this is just a very, very real movie. And it's a very important movie. And I'm sure that it'll get its appreciation come Oscar season. But this movie really got me. And I really hope everybody gets a chance to go out and see this movie because I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Especially this little girl, Brooklyn Prince. Well, all right. The time has come to reveal my number one film of 2017. Now, this is the film that I thought was a true masterpiece on all phases of filmmaking. This is a film that I feel will stick with me for the rest of my life, and there's not a chance in hell that I will ever forget about it. And this movie is...
Are you running late? Did you see too much? All the awful dreams felt real enough.
A Ghost Story. A Ghost Story just... God, how do I even put it into words? A Ghost Story... This movie just transcended me through space and time itself. And it did it in the most unorthodox way, but the most unorthodox way was the most captivating way that I could possibly even imagine that this film could capture it. And man, this film has absolutely it's like it just dug a place in my heart and just planted itself there. And now it's going to be there forever. And only time will make it blossom into something even more beautiful. But this movie is just great. It took a very simple and easily cheesy concept of putting somebody in the most cliche ghost outfit of just a white sheet and following them around upon a very existential journey. But it was the way that it was directed, the way that it was captured, the way that everything was executed was just one of the most captivating and one of the most emotional rides that I have ever been through. And of course, this is not a film that everybody's going to agree with me on. I'm sure a lot of y'all are already surprised that this is my number one because this film is again, it's not necessarily for everybody. The first act of this film, I'm sure is going to be rough for most people to get through. I'm sure it'll even be rough for some film lovers. It's got some very long takes, probably some of the longest takes that I've ever seen in filmmaking. But I've just come to appreciate this film as a whole because I know what those long takes are there for. I know what he was going for throughout this entire film, and it just works so incredibly well for me. The score in this movie is it's literally unimaginably phenomenal. It is just one of the best scores that I've ever heard in my entire life, including a song that is in the film called I Get Overwhelmed. That song, it's only a very few songs can I just listen to at any point in time, and I'll actually choke up and tear up literally every single time that I play it. If I'm just in my car and I put this song on, I start crying. I'm not even gonna lie. I get teary-eyed and I start crying because this film just did an amazing job at incorporating music and this song in particular into the movie in a way that it'll just get you every single time. This film just has an incredibly real and down-to-earth message about time, our perception of time, and our unappreciation for time. because, you know, this film shows you that we only have a limited amount of time in our life, for sure. That's what we know for sure. And it just kind of goes to show you that sometimes we get caught up on certain things that we shouldn't really be really getting caught up and stressed out about, considering that there's only a limited amount of time that we actually have on this planet. And, you know, this film is just, I really appreciate the down-to-earth nature of this and the honesty that this film conveys and just everything like this. I just feel like when I'm watching this movie, I am completely in a whole different world. It's almost kind of upsetting when the film ends because you just kind of come straight back to reality and you're like, oh. But the thing is, this film kind of conveys reality. So it's kind of like after it's done, again, like you feel that feeling. You're just like, ooh, like it's kind of bittersweet. Like you understand and you agree with what the film is conveying and how it's executed, but you know that feeling is something that is both really joyous and kind of upsetting at the same time. But that's what I love about it. I don't want a film that gives me the most happiest ending ever and gives it in a bow tie and just gives it straight to me on a platter. I don't want that because that's not real to me. I want a film that is honest about life and about our perception of certain things. And I just want a very honest message. And this film gave me the most honest message that I could really ask for. And it was executed in the most creatively unique and emotional, hard-hitting way. And I love this movie so much. And that is why it's number one on my list. And, you know, I'm sure that not many people will put this as their number one, but if I'm just grading a film and if I'm ordering a film as which film really stuck with me the most and gave me the most memorable film experience and the most emotional film experience, the film that I've talked about most out of this entire year has to be A Ghost Story. This movie just completely impressed me with every aspect of it. A Ghost Story was just extravagant, emotional, uniquely creative, and I couldn't have picked another film to be my number one this year besides A Ghost Story. A Ghost Story and David Lowery, the film director and writer, thank you so much for giving me such an emotional and memorable and uniquely crafted piece of filmmaking. Well, that's it. It's done. Those are my top 15 films of the year. I'm sure, you know, maybe some of you guys are probably going to be trying to bitch me out in the comment section and be like, oh my God, how can you put that film over that film? Oh, holy shit, how can you not include that film? I know, I'm sorry, and that's okay. You can be mad all you want. That's fine. Vent it out in the comment section. That's what it's there for, and then maybe we can talk about it. How about that? But yeah, thank you so much for actually clicking on this video and hearing what I had to say, and actually caring about my favorite films of the year. That means a lot to me. And it's January. You know, it's the new year. And it kind of sucks for me because I'm going to have to sit through a whole bunch of shit movies now because, you know, a lot of shit movies like to come out at the beginning of the year. So be prepared for that. And thank you so much. If you really like this video, please give it a like and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the Misfit Pawn channel to be updated on more film-related content.